No matter how fierce we chase the light, there are moments when darkness claims its place. It creeps in not as an enemy, but as a reflection of the parts of ourselves we would rather not see. The fears, the doubts, the unhealed scars, things we bury in daylight, come alive in the shadows. And perhaps that's the point. When the shadow wins, it's not a defeat, but a call to acknowledge what's been hidden, to confront, to understand, and sometimes to let go, because without the shadow, we would never truly know the power of light. Where I come from, the shadow is often seen as part of life's balance. We understand that light and darkness are two sides of the same coin. Just as day turns into night, there are times in our lives when we are called to sit in the shadows, to listen to what they have to tell us. I remember a time when the shadow won in my life. Back in my village in Africa, I was in a place where I was not certain about life, where every decision felt heavy. And I know I'm not alone in this dilemma. Should I leave the village for the city? Should I stay in the village and live in poverty? Should I leave the country for a better country? The world seemed like it was moving forward, but I was stuck in a lonely heart, stuck in a place of doubt. You see, in many African communities, there's a deep-rooted pressure to succeed, not just for yourself, but for your family, for your people. And when you feel like you are not living up to those expectations, the shadow grows. I would wake up, go about my day, but the shadow was always there. It whispered the things that I did not want to hear. You are not good enough. You are failing. You never make it. And the more I tried to ignore it, the louder it became. What you resist persists. But here's what I've learned, and this is something I have come to appreciate even more from my own culture. Shadows have lessons. In African folklore, the elders tell stories of the shadow self, that part of us that carries our suppressed emotion, our own unspoken fears. In the Western world, you might call it the subconscious. But here, we know it as something deeply connected to who we are. We've all been there, haven't we? It doesn't matter where you're from. Whether you grew up in the heart of Harare, in the busy street of Maputo in Mozambique, Lagos in Nigeria, and in a quiet countryside in Poland, for example, we all have moments where the shadow wins, where the light feels distance and the doubts the struggles, the fears, they all come rushing in. You see, it's easy to celebrate the light, to stand in moments of triumph when everything seems to align and we feel proud. But when the shadow wins, that is where the real work begins. That's where we meet ourselves, not in the glow of success, but in the rawness of failure, in the vulnerability of our deepest insecurities. In many ways, the shadow is our greatest teacher. It teaches us resilience. It teaches us humility. It forces us to slow down, to pause, to reflect. In my village, the elders always say, even the strongest tree must bend when the storm comes. The shadow is that storm, and the bending, that's us learning how to adapt, how to face our deepest truths. This isn't just an African truth, it's a human truth. No matter where you're from, you have experienced the weight of the shadow, the moments of self-doubt, of fear, that you are not enough, or feeling lost in a world that demands clarity. But just like the shadow that stretches across the African savannas, there is always the promise of a new dawn. The shadow can't exist without the light. When I started to understand that the shadow wasn't my enemy, everything changed. Instead of running from it, I began to listen to it. What was it trying to tell me? What parts of my life had I ignored for too long? And in those moments of reflection, I found strength. I realized that the shadow wasn't there to break me, but to build me, to make me whole, to make me complete. So, what about you? What shadows are you running from? What fears are you bearing under the layers of busyness, of distractions, of pretending that everything is just fine? In the end, we are all creatures of both light and shadow. And that's the beauty of life. The shadow teaches us what the light cannot. It shows us depth of our spirits, the resilience of our hearts, and the power of our minds to overcome anything.